Welcome, everyone, to the first ever Geek Claire podcast live stream. Thank you to everyone who's joining us live. A big blanket hello to all of y'all. And if you're sad you missed us live, click the link in the description to join our Discord. It's free. Tonight is our Scream 7 spoiler review. If you haven't seen Scream 7, get out of here. That probably goes without saying. But it made $97 million this weekend, higher than the highest they estimated it would make, so I know all y'all saw it already. Which means we definitely getting Scream 8.
I hate to start us off with sad news, but breaking sad news as we're doing this. Bruce Campbell has been diagnosed with treatable, but not curable, cancer. If anybody is gonna give cancer a fight, it's gonna be Ash Williams. Best wishes for Bruce Campbell. We at Geek Claire Podcasts wish him nothing but health and happiness. Love, thoughts, and prayers to him and his friends, his family. And if we could encourage everyone listening to this, please get screened early and often for cancer. It has taken so many legends from us in the past few years. Don't let yourself be the next legend it takes from us. May Bruce continue to have a great life and career for years and years to come. Alright, that said, let's get into Scream 7.
First of all, I gotta talk about the previews that I saw and the little bit of drama that goes with that. I saw not one, but two ads for Dubai, Saudi Arabia, and Emirates Airlines. And that kind of boggles my mind a little bit. Why, after all the drama that this movie has gone through, would you get people into the theater and then remind them, by the way, our parent company is in bed with a country that's done some not great stuff? I do not understand the corporate logic there whatsoever, but whatever. On the fun movie side of it, there was also a trailer for Ready or Not 2. That looks good, but by far the best trailer was Scary Movie 6. It looks offensive and funny, and I am here for it, dude. In just the trailer, there is a political joke, a racist joke, a pronouns joke, a gay joke, a parody of the scene where Art the Clown murders children from Terrifier 3, and they even acknowledge the movie drama of Scream 6. If that's just like 2-ish minutes of the trailer, what are the other 88 minutes? You know what I mean? And if it does well, the Wayans brothers said they want to do White Chicks 2 and Don't Be a Menace to South Central While Drinking Your Juice in the Hood 2. So please go support that movie when it comes out this summer so we can get 3 comedies out of it, not just one. The world needs laughter. All right. Now, Scream 7 talk. We hear an updated version of Sidney's lament over the opening credits, over the opening Paramount logo, and I gotta say, it was great having Marco Beltrami back. There's good chasing music in here, and I think my favorite new piece of music from him comes later in the film when there's a house sweeping scene. I thought that was really intense and great. And like, they didn't have to bring him back. That's the thing. They did that for us horror nerds. The casual moviegoer who's going to see Scream 7, they don't care. They don't care who did the music for the Scream films. They're not reading the credits. They're not following the movie news and the drama and all that. They did that for us horror geeks, and I love them for it. Now, as for the opening scene itself, I mean, the trailer spoiled most of that already, but a couple of big things that the trailer did not spoil, thankfully. They canonized that Stu Macher, or someone who looks a lot like him, was at the Windsor College party in the 90s. They canonized Scream 2 and Matthew Lillard's little fun cameo background that wasn't supposed to be anything originally. Wes Craven just thought it'd be funny, and Matthew Lillard was there. They grabbed him, they put him in the movie. And now they canonize that that's Stu or someone who looks like him, which was a great way to tease us on the Matthew Lillard thing for this movie even more. I love that. I also really like the couple in the opening scene. They reminded me a lot of Omar Epps and Jada Pinkett Smith's characters from Scream 2, where they're this couple that you can tell really loves each other despite their differences in taste and movies and stuff. I thought that was really nice. And I assumed, probably as all of you did, that Ghostface was going to kill them both and then burn down Stu's house. Nope. He burns the house down while the girl is still alive. That was brutal, dude. And she wasn't even the horror geek of the two. Like, at least the horror geek could take some sick pleasure in being killed by a ghost face, maybe. But she wasn't even the horror geek, and she got it the worst way. Oh, so painful, but so good. Now, as far as the motive of burning down Stu's house, that was something that really had me interested because, like, if it's Stu, why is he burning down his own house? And if it's not Stu, wouldn't the people love Stu? Wouldn't they love the stab movies or true crime or something? I mean, they're ghost faces, so they have that in common with Stu, so why would they burn his house down? Wouldn't they love him? I thought that was a really interesting angle that would get answered in here, and it really doesn't get answered in here. It's used to explain the writing, not so much the character motivation. And, well, we'll get to that when we get to it. We're not going to go like scene by scene, by the way, either. We're just going to jump around as needed. It's loose, it's live, baby. Let's do this. And if I missed anything, or if there's anything that you feel needed to be addressed, or hey, comment below about it, or comment in the live chat about it. I want to talk all things Scream with y'all. That's why we're doing this. After the opening scene, we cut to Pine Grove, Indiana. We meet the new Tatum, Isabel May playing Sidney's daughter. We meet her sus boyfriend. We meet Joel McHale, the new Mark that Sidney married, Mark Evans. We catch up on Sidney's life. By the way, I hate her job. I hate that she runs a coffee shop now. Like, I get that she has to do something, and they needed to point that out really quick, and the coffee shop doesn't matter that much in the grand scheme of the movie. They just established, hey, she's a mom and she has a job and stuff. Okay, cool. But I hate that she has that job. Why? Why would you get a job where you're interacting with the public on a regular basis, around the same time every day, in the same place every day? If you've been attacked 5 times before this, why would you want a job like that? You piss off one Karen, you don't put enough chocolate chips in her chocolate chip low-fat double whip mocha frappuccino, and now you got another Ghostface on your hands. Her being a writer in Scream 4 made way more sense to me, dude, because she could write from anywhere. But that's a small nitpicky part of the movie that doesn't even factor in, so I was cool with it. Cool enough, anyway. But I'm just saying. Anyway, I love the relationship between Sidney and Tatum, by the way. I do love how that progressed throughout the movie. Both characters have good points when they disagree. Both characters have valid reasons for feeling how they feel. No one is vilified. Sidney's not an unreasonably overprotective helicopter mom, and neither is Tatum a spoiled, nosy brat. I thought they did a great job developing that relationship and how Sidney, by trying to protect her daughter, left her unprepared when bad stuff did happen and had to help her through that, through her own experiences. And of course, by the end of the film, she's come full circle and she starts to open up just a little bit to her daughter, which is nice. We meet Tatum's friends, but honestly, most of the new cast in here didn't do it for me. They just weren't on screen enough to be developed. They were pretty much just there to get killed, and you can tell. But they did do a pretty good misdirection, in my opinion. Because one of the friends says, we're going to have a party tonight. I've been stealing my mom's edibles and stuff. So right away, as a Scream fan, you're like, oh, third act party scene, here we go. Third act party scene for what, the 4th time in the franchise? But no, they subvert that expectation. That hostess dies. So I thought they did a good job there. Sidney, in the first act of the film, surprisingly in the first act of the film, gets a phone call not from Ghostface, but from Stu Macher, or AI Stu, we don't know yet. Not going to spoil that this early on. And of course, Matthew Lillard's great. Do I even need to say that? He's back as Stu, he's saying all the things. He talks about, you named your daughter Tatum, it's kind of weird or whatever. Like, he's awesome. And the way he angrily presses the end call button on all the phone calls is unintentionally hysterical, by the way. Look for it when you watch this movie. Consequently, though, as great as it was seeing a lot of Matthew Lillard screen time on the phone calls, that meant less screen time for Rodger L Jackson, the voice of Ghostface. And when we do hear Ghostface, none of his lines are particularly memorable. So this might be his worst performance, not because of him, just because of the writing. I hope he gets more lines in Scream 8. The Ghostface versus Sidney stuff in the first act was wonderful, dude. It had me on the edge of my seat. Sidney's confronting Ghostface at the school. She's shooting off a gun. They're wrestling around. I honestly wondered to myself in the theater, was this stuff meant to be like in the second or third act of the film and they edited some stuff out and now it's in the first act? And it's great that they start us off so hot like that. But consequently, Sidney also starts to believe maybe it's Stu way too early on. Her character is supposed to be smarter than that. I did not like that part at all. She's not a grandma being fooled by AI phone calls. I know that she has to believe it's Stu for the plot to happen, but that did not feel earned at all. And there's ways they could have gotten there. I think this movie should have taken its time and built that up a little more. As for Sydney's relationship with her new husband, Mark Evans, they have like one nice scene together in the bedroom. After that, he's just protective cop dad, protective cop husband. He didn't make me love him, but I didn't walk away hating him either. He just was there. So maybe he'll get more to do in Scream 8. He did not die, which surprised me. I thought for sure he'd die and make room for Patrick Dempsey to come back. But no. I would like them to try to find a way to work Patrick Dempsey in there in Scream 8. That's on my wish list. And they could even, maybe he moves to Indiana and joins the police force over there. And now him and Joel McHale have this like tense relationship because like, oh, I kind of had a thing for your wife once we used to date or whatever. That could be fun. That could be a fun red herring tension building thing for Scream 8 maybe.
As for the red herrings in this movie, I thought they did a half decent job of it. One of the killers I successfully guessed very early on, more on that later, but one of the killers I guessed wrong about. There were just enough red herrings and just enough subtle clues that made you go, well, maybe it's that person. It was a half decent job. And when the person who I thought it was got killed, it really left me guessing for that second killer. So, good enough job, Scream 7. As for that other killer, well, we'll get into it.
Now, as far as the other legacy characters go, Gale was awesome. In her intro scene, she hits a Ghostface with her freaking car. And that's where the first scene comes back, and what I meant by it's justifying the writing as opposed to the killer's motivations. The opening scenes always tie into the killer somehow, tie into the plot somehow, but this one, it was just Gale going, yeah, I saw there was an attack in Woodsboro, so I knew, you were in trouble, so I came and stuff. Okay, but you could have called her, you could have, she wasn't there for you in New York, and they do kind of address that at some point, but yeah, that just felt weird to me. Oh, this needed to happen because we needed to get Gale and Sidney in a room together. Well, that's the writing reason it needed to happen. What's the plot reason? They didn't explain it. It does not tie in to the finale at all. But I can forgive it because after Gale hits the Ghostface with her car, they unmask him, and it's a reveal. First of all, it's a reveal early on. That's only the second time in Scream movie history we've had an early Ghostface reveal, and that's if you count Jason and Greg. Which it's arguable if they're even Ghostfaces, right? Like maybe Jason, but Greg? Come on, he was meat. That ain't cool. So if you don't count them, it's the first time we've had a Ghostface reveal early on. So good for that guy. I can't even remember this character's name, honestly, which might mean he's a worse Ghostface than Greg, because at least Jason and Greg were memorable. Anyway, he was the guy from the psychiatric ward, which leads Sidney and Gale to the psychiatric ward, of course. But first, before we get there, I got to talk about Gale having nerve damage. That was a nice touch. It ties back to Dewey, who wasn't supposed to survive Scream 1, but did. And then they explained it in 2 that, oh, I was lucky I had nerve damage. And now she has nerve damage, just like he did. That was a nice emotional tie back to Dewey. And also acknowledge that she was probably supposed to die in Scream 6. Honestly, I wish she did, not because I hate her character, just because that death scene would have been awesome if they pulled the trigger on that, but they didn't. But whatever, she's back. Okay, fine. She does more in this movie, though, than she did in the last 2. She is that hard-hitting reporter again, and she is asking the tough questions. She's asking the tough questions at the psychiatric ward about Stu. She's even asking Sidney the tough questions when she finally gets to interview her. I did like all that. She had Chad and Mindy backing her up because we got to get them in the movie, too. Honestly, they felt pretty useless to me through this whole thing. Chad neither died like he also should have in Scream 6, nor did they lean into the meta humor of him surviving incredibly unrealistic attacks. Like, you should have done one or the other, either kill him in this one or keep it the running gag that he survives all this crazy stuff, and they didn't do either, really. Mindy didn't even give the rules. In fact, they said how they're not going to do that anymore. There's barely any meta humor in here. But Gale did have one great meta joke where they say she got fired from her job. But she goes, I wasn't fired. My contract wasn't renewed. Which, wow, they acknowledged the Melissa Barrera drama. I was surprised about that. I really thought, of all the meta jokes to make, I didn't think that was going to be one of them. However, Chad and Mindy, or even Gale for that matter, they don't tell us where the Carpenter sisters are. I thought that would at least be one line of dialogue where they say, oh yeah, cemetery over here now, they're good. They don't say anything about them. They don't come up. But neither do they say, oh yeah, they died off screen. So I guess the door's open. Maybe they didn't say anything because they didn't want to paint themselves into a corner. And they want to keep the door open for Melissa and or Jenna to come back in a possible Scream 8. You know what I mean? Let's not say where they are. Let's not say, oh, they got a job in Alaska, because then, crap, we got to film Scream 8 in Alaska or something. You know what I mean? Or maybe I'm just a foolish optimist. But yeah, anyway, because of all that, Chad and Mindy really probably didn't need to be in this movie at all. They don't die. They don't save the day. They don't have great meta moments. They're just kind of there. And that's unfortunate, because they are better characters than that. And Mindy walks back, in my opinion, she walks back her Stu stance from Scream 6. Remember now, Kirby, the FBI agent in Scream 6, goes, yeah, Stu Macher died, blah, blah, blah. And Mindy goes, if you believe he's dead. And in this one, she just goes, well, anything's possible. Billy Loomis had an illegitimate daughter. I don't know. Like, no, you didn't know. You were sure. Where's that confidence? That could have been a fun thing to play with if she, over the course of the film, becomes less sure Stu's alive, while Gale and Sidney become more sure he is after not believing it for a second. That could have been really fun to play with, and they kind of missed that opportunity, unfortunately. So we go to the institution, we meet Ethan Embry's character, he implies that Stu is maybe alive, okay.
The doctor claims that Stu Macher has no intake form at the morgue despite being taken to the morgue. He claims that the person who took the intake forms is also now dead. He claims that Stu Macher, or John Doe as he refers to him, he claims that John Doe was in the asylum and had amnesia, and no one really knew who he was because of the scars, and that was a pretty clever way to explain Stu. I've seen plenty of people theorize that Stu was in a mental institution this whole time. I stand to be corrected on this, but I'm pretty sure no one theorized that Stu has amnesia. But that is a good writing way to explain why Stu hasn't gone after Sidney this whole time, because he didn't even remember who he was, let alone who she was, and then somehow he got his memory back, and yada yada yada, here we go again. So I do give the writers credit for that, at least. And, of course, there are still plot holes in there, but as far as movie logic goes, it kind of works as a Stu explanation. And, of course, if the Stu thing isn't true, or if maybe that's the guy who looked like Stu from the party or whatever, that could have been the angle. Or if it's, not Stu at all, and that whole thing was a lie, well, then it doesn't matter what you say, right? So, good on them for kind of acknowledging a popular Stu theory with the mental institution, but also putting their own twist on it, and not just regurgitating stuff from Reddit. So I do applaud them for that.
Eventually, more people get killed along the way, and we know how this thing goes. Sidney has to help Tatum, but Tatum ends up getting kidnapped, and Sidney has to go save the day. The third act of this film felt like a nostalgia overdose. It really did. We had Stu on screen again. We had what many are calling Emo Dewey on screen. I honestly don't know if they made him look that way because, like, in universe, the killers were mocking that Dewey was dead. Like, put a filter where you put like a silly hat on somebody or something crazy like that. I don't know if that's what it was meant to be, like in universe, or if David Arquette just rolled out of bed like he was shooting a video for Cameo and just sent that to the filmmakers lazily and didn't even care if he didn't look like Dewey. I honestly can't tell which way they were trying to get, which way that was supposed to be taken. Apparently, they asked Mikey Madison to come back as well, but she said no, which I kind of get. She's an Oscar winner now. She's probably like, yeah, I ain't doing a cameo in a cheap slasher movie. Y'all can't afford me anymore. But yeah, we got Stu, we got Mrs. Loomis back, we got Roman back, all AI, all on the TV, and we got Emo Dewey. And Dewey didn't even get a scene with Gale, which that bothered me. They didn't even interact, not even AI Dewey. That part did bother me a lot. And the fact that it was AI killers, but they just excluded Billy and Mickey and Jill. Like, if you're gonna do it, do it. And I get there were probably film budgetary reasons for that, but in universe, the killer should have been all about that.
According to Kevin Williamson in Esquire magazine, the way Guy Busick originally pitched him the idea for these AI killers was, okay, Stu coming back would be our franchise jumping the shark. We don't do stuff like that. We make fun of the franchises that do stuff like that. So what if instead of jumping one shark with Stu, we jump 10 sharks? We bring everybody back, Spider-Man No Way Home style. All the dead people are back suddenly somehow. But then, surprise, haha, they're not all back. We're not jumping the shark. It was all AI. And when you hear it explained like that, it does sound cool on paper. It does make a lot more sense. It didn't come out as executed. I think it needed a little more work.
And of course, in the end, it was get ready, big reveal, last chance to click out. Did you bet $100 whether Stu's alive or dead? Well, Stu is dead. It was AI. It was not Stu. It was Anna Camp's character Jessica and Ethan Embry's character the Doctor, both of whom had like one scene before that. So that was not very exciting. A lot of fans were predicting Anna Camp's character months before this movie came out. So it was really disappointing that one of the killers was guessed way ahead of time. That speaks to bad marketing and bad writing, because when I saw her on screen, she did not change my mind that she was sus, you know? So as it turns out, Anna Kemp's character Jessica read Sidney's book, the one she wrote and promoted in Scream 4. And I did like that angle. That was a cool way to tie it in. I mean, after all, this is an alternate universe Scream 5, if you think about it. So that was a good way to tie that in. She misinterpreted the text of Sidney surviving all these ghost faces and killing them in self-defense, and Jessica decided to kill her abusive husband. And she got away with it, and then she committed herself to an insane asylum, and that's where she met Ethan Embry's character, who used to do Google AI security, and that's why they were taunting Sidney with AI, but it really didn't make sense. So what, if he worked for like the bomb squad, you would have tried to blow Sidney up if that was his old job? You should have met like a former cop or a former FBI agent who could have planted evidence that Stu was alive to convince them, you know, something. There could have been a more useful past job for the guy to have. She should have shopped around more. That's all I'm saying. And had they leaned into the AI thing more, that could have been fun as well. Because all it took to fix the flimsy usage of AI outside of nostalgia baiting us, all it took was one line of dialogue going, "You see, Sidney, we've convinced everyone Stu Macher's alive, even your cop husband. So now, that's how we're going to get away with killing you. Everyone's looking for Stu Macher. They're not looking for us. Nya-ah-ah." Something like that. Less cartoony than I just did it, but you get the idea. They want to kill Sidney because they're disappointed she wasn't in New York. They're disappointed she's trying to move on with her life and move past the trauma. They won't let her move past the trauma. It's either you stay traumatized or you die, Sidney. So their plan is to kill Sidney in front of Tatum, and thus, just like how Sidney lost her mom and started on her journey, Tatum, in their warped minds, would then become the new Sidney. It was very like David Chapman, and I kind of like that aspect of it. But we know how these movies go. Evil is foiled, and Sidney and Tatum survive. Gale and the Meeks Martin twins, they all make it. It's fine. And there was one moment at the end, a really great emotional moment. Two of them, actually. One between Neve Campbell and Isabel May, in which Sidney talks about how the original Tatum was the last person she was able to trust before all this crazy stuff in her life started happening. That was really great emotional acting by Neve Campbell. I loved how they made the original Tatum character even more important all these movies later. And then Sidney corrects herself by saying to Gale that, also, I trust you. I was wrong. I said original Tatum's the last one I trusted. I trust you. And then they hug. And then Gale says, you want me to drive you to the hospital now? And dude, let me tell you, for just a second, for just a split second, part of me was wondering, yo, is Gale about to stab her right now? Part of me was like, oh, what a heart-wrenching moment that would be if she gets in the car, Gale stabs her, reveals herself as a fourth Ghostface, maybe, doesn't kill her, but maybe like drives away with her or something, and Sidney's passed out from the blood loss or something. Gale drives away, and now Tatum has to save her in Scream 8. That would have been such a crazy cliffhanger and such a wild reveal. People's hearts would have been ripped out, and everyone would have gone to see Scream 8, but maybe I'm just writing bad fan fiction. I do like that it wasn't a cliffhanger ending. I will say that. I was worried about that going in. I think a lot of us were. Kevin Williamson has always wanted to do one, and Wes Craven and/or the studio always said no, and now he has the power to do it if he wanted. Not to mention the fact that we knew Scream 8 was coming, and we knew they've been milking the Stu thing since Scream 5. So, like, are they going to keep milking it? Is one Ghostface going to get away and it's Stu later on? No, this is one and done, seemingly. Which I guess is good, because a lot of people didn't like it, so we'll see what the drop-off is next week as well as for Scream 8. The last thing you want is a Halloween Ends situation, where now your second movie is retroactively hurt by the next chapter sucking, That's never good. But yeah, Gale does not turn heel on Sidney, and they have a nice emotional moment as well, and that was great. Now let's talk about where Scream 8 is going. Could Stu still come back? I think so. Here's the thing. In some of the phone calls, he had the scars, and in other phone calls, he didn't. So maybe that's Stu or the guy who looks like him, still played by Matthew Lillard. That could be. And I do like that they gave him those scars, too. Matthew Lillard, at the time of Scream 5, while confirming he wasn't in it, he did do the voice of the Stab movie Ghostface in that. But he confirmed Stu's not in it. But he said around that time, he said if Stu ever does come back, I'd like him to be scarred. That's how I imagine it, scarred from the TV. So it was cool they let him have that, at least a little bit. Now, maybe because these killers were using AI, it does convince the real Stu to come out of hiding. No one's going to take credit for my work except me, that type of killer logic, right? That could be something. I think Tatum will get developed more. I already pitched my Patrick Dempsey idea. That could be fun. Let's get him in there. They do a mid-credits scene, but not a post-credits scene, but it's not that important. It's just Mindy trying to be a reporter like Gale and messing up lines and stuff. That could be fun if Mindy progresses into that field. Can we please do something with Gale again? That could be fun. There was a whole side plot with her and the Robbie Rivers reporter that got axed. He barely doesn't need to even be in here. There's no romance between them, not even a question before she decides she's not overdue yet. I thought maybe they'd at least do that, but no. He's in like 2 scenes. That whole thing got cut. Maybe they'll do something with that in Scream 8. Or give Gale a happy ending where she does move on properly. I don't know, man. What did you think of Scream 7, and what do you want to see in Scream 8? Let's talk about it down in the comments. Thank you again to everyone who joined us live. Join our Discord to see our next event over there. And we'll be back soon. So come back soon and take another bite of the Geek Claire.